is up, hotties? Welcome back to another episode of Stay Hot. I'm Blaiden Kirk, joined as always by my two favorite co-hosts of all time, Matthew Sponhour and Theo Ash, and this is our final mock draft before the NFL draft. So this one is going to happen. This one is going to come true. I can't wait to get into this. We've got some interesting stuff lined up already. So before we get into it, Matt, Theo, how are you guys doing on this glorious Easter Sunday?
Easter Sunday. It's going well. I was at a sports bar last night watching the Lakers get mauled by the Timberwolves and watching the Avs maul the Dallas Stars. That was also on the TV. And it was a good time. I had pretzel bites. I had chicken fingers. I had tater tots. I had a Guinness.
Tots are elite, man.
It was a good time. It was a good time. The energy was up because I'm here in Denver and the Avs were doing good. Mackenzie Blackwood, shout out to him. Some amazing saves. Shout out the Timberwolves for driving into the paint and then kicking it out to an open three-point shooter every play and killing the Lakers. I was there with a Lakers fan, and every time they'd hit a three, I'd just look at him with as much sadness as I could muster. And that happened quite a lot.
That's big of you. Yeah, I'm glad that the offs are back. They started up. It's getting real warm out now. I'm loving it. Easter's fire. My parents sent over a ham like they do every Easter. That's their move. And it's hype. It's like a big
That's
honey
really
baked
hype.
elite ham.
How does it arrive at your house? Does a grocery truck come and bring it, or does it come in a box?
Sometimes it's a box. Today, actually, my mom was in town visiting, so she just brought me a ham.
There we go. That's the best way.
But a lot of times it just comes in like a box. It ships right to your house. And it lasts you a long time. It's a lot of sandwiches. And the Reds won by 20 today, so everything is good and peachy.
I'm sorry.
The colors are bright.
Did you see the Reds won by 20?
Why would that be a surprise? They're demons. Ellie De La Cruz demons.
It's baseball.
Austin Hayes,
They won by
demon.
22,
Yeah,
less.
it's the Reds. This is typical for them. I don't know what to tell you. No, they have like their run differential is like 30 something right now, and they're still 500. It's partially because position players come into pitch, and then it gets really out of hand because, the Orioles were out of it, whatever. But it's still a great win, so I don't care.
Is their run differential so good because of this 22-point win today?
Well, it's 20 of the runs, and a lot of those runs, or part of those runs, were just like the Orioles had tapped out, right? But it's also because a lot of their like they had 3 0-1 losses in a row, and they've had some other like just really bad close losses. I don't actually know what it is. They're not a bad team though.
What's the highest scoring game like in baseball? Like I feel like 20 points feels like absurd.
It is.
I don't think it's the highest score ever, but probably pretty dang good. You know what that is? The Reds just had the greatest game of all time.
Maybe they did, man. I don't know. I like watching baseball.
There was a 26-23 game, and that's the highest scoring.
Reds wouldn't give up 23. We'll never hit that, but maybe we can win one like 50-0.
50-0.
You guys want to get into this mock draft?
Let's do it.
Oh, baby, I'd love to. And Theo, I believe you have.
Well, before we get into it, we should explain exactly how we're doing it and what we're doing.
Okay.
This is going to be a predictive mock draft, not what we would do, but in general, what we think will happen, or just kind of based on what would be reasonable, probably, depending on, all the picks throughout the draft.
There could be a little bit of what you would do, I think, going on, but I'm not going to try doing anything like insane.
I thought the group chat we said was going to be predictive.
I mean, it is predictive, but like, I don't know.
It's a mock draft.
It's a mock draft, man. Like,
and we have not like collaborated on our picks. The way that it works is Theo, I have the first.
You have the first pick.
I have the first pick. Then
that's right.
Then Blaiden has the second pick. Theo has the third pick. Then back to me for the fourth pick. So on, so on, so on. So we're kind of playing it live, depending on how the other two draft. So
yeah.
With that said, I don't think we need to waste any time on the first overall pick. It'll be Cam Ward. It seems like It would be a pretty big shock if it wasn't. I mean, everything is saying that he's going there. He's talking like he's going there. We haven't heard anything else. They're probably totally decided. I think it's fine. I think they need a quarterback. So we've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. Everyone knows it at this point. So let's cross off pick 1, Cam Ward.
All right. Easy enough. Cam Ward's the first pick. I'll make the second pick just as easy. Travis Hunter to the Cleveland Browns. This is another pick where if Cam Ward goes number 1, I would be shocked if Travis Hunter didn't go number 2. The Browns are a team that I have said consistently needs basically every position. How better to spend the second overall pick than getting a 2-for-1, 2 good players win in one pick here. So get a good receiver, good corner. We'll take Travis Hunter. Number 2 overall, my Cleveland Browns. And then Theo, you and I have been kind of congregating on a possible trade here at number 3. Do we want to do it or do we want to not do it?
You tell me. Well, I've got the Giants here.
Yeah.
And Abdul Carter is the number 1 prospect left on the board. And I kind of figured it would go Ward first, Hunter second, knowing what I know about you guys. And that left me with the Giants. And I just don't think they need Carter as much as some other teams might. They were top 3 in sack rate last year. So their pass rush is not the weak point of this team whatsoever. Burns had a 15.6% pressure rate. Even Thibodeau wasn't bad in that area with 12.4. He's been disappointing, but he's not like a horrible starter out there by any means. The interior of the offensive line, the interior of the defensive line next to Dexter Lawrence, those to me are bigger, more glaring needs for New York. And I think even stylistically, Burns and Carter have a lot in common. So, if you're them and you're looking at Carter, you're thinking, what could he add to the team that we don't already have? I mean, you get Carter because he's got such a crazy first step and can get to the quarterback so quickly. But they already have that. They already have a guy who can get pressure that quickly. So I was wondering if anybody wanted to trade up for Carter in the group chat for this mock. And then Blaiden bit a little bit. But we'll see if he actually wants to do it. I said, well, what team were you controlling that you thought this might make sense for?
The Cincinnati Bengals, one of the worst defenses in football. And I think adding a guy like Abdul Carter, even though they have Hendrickson, but he's been rumored in trades as well this offseason. So who knows if he'll even be on the team next year. I thought adding Abdul Carter would make a lot of sense for them. But then Theo wants my first this year, obviously, 17 overall. He wants my first next year. He wants 49 overall, 119 overall, and then a third in 2027. Do I have that all right, Theo?
Next year's third and a second in 2027 is what I originally said. So it would be 2 firsts, 2 seconds, a third, and a fourth, I think, which is a lot.
It's 7 draft picks.
Yeah, for one player.
No way.
No way it happens.
No way you can give up that much volume for a single guy. I mean, it's one thing to make a big trade. But to give up 7 picks, I feel like just makes it almost impossible to work yourself out of a hole like the Bengals are in right now, where they got to hit on a bunch of dudes. That's my thought on it. I think I could see a world where they want to trade up for Carter and get a number 1 guy, but honestly, I just think it might be too tough. And Carter is really good. Carter should go 3. He is not this level of prospect, in my opinion. He could end up being a beast, of course, and I think he'll be a really, really great player.
But is he a better prospect than Will Anderson was?
Right. I don't think he's a better prospect than Anderson or a lot of other top guys at the same position in other years. So I would disagree with this personally.
Yeah, it's a lot. And Cincinnati would run into the same problem where if they had Hendrickson and Carter together, you'd wonder about the run defense. You'd wonder was it worth giving up all that?
Well, you're going to wonder about the run defense anyway.
You're going to run. Yeah, that's probably true. And I think at the end of the day, like having Burns, Thibodeau, and Carter isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, we can quibble about stylistic.
Yeah, here would be my question. So if you're going to sit here and take Carter, would you consider Mason Graham or Will Campbell or Josh Simmons?
I would seriously consider Mason Graham. They like to play with, kind of that 5-2 front with 2 outside linebackers. And the other 2 defensive tackles next to Dexter Lawrence, are currently slated to be DJ Davidson, who had a 41 PFF grade last year, and then Nunez Roches, who had a 47 PFF grade last year. And they had pressure rates of 5.1% and 3.3% respectively. So I could see Graham being kind of a easier fit or maybe more of a need. But I also think Graham doesn't quite have the freakiness about him. I mean, he has 9 career sacks in college, and Abdul Carter was the most productive guy last year. So I just don't know if 3 is the place to take Mason Graham as opposed to Carter. Now, you could take Campbell, but you'd have to change his position.
Yeah.
Because he's not playing left tackle with Andrew Thomas there. I guess maybe you could change Andrew Thomas's position. But again, he's just not as good of a raw prospect as Carter in the consensus. I think they're pretty similar, but in the consensus, that's not true. So I do think, even though I'm hemming and hawing, I will end up picking Carter here for the Giants and living with that. And having 2 guys who can get to the quarterback quickly isn't the worst problem to have, although it's not. Maybe I'd rather prefer it be a really good power rusher instead, but that just...
It might not even be a problem at all.
It might be good.
I think the Giants are so far away that it's okay to take just best player available here at 3. I agree that like a huge trade down, like if the Bengals are willing to pay that, I would slam yes and then be chilling. But I think them taking Carter here, it seems like a consensus that's what's going to happen, but we'll see. Speaking of consensus, we're moving on to 4 with the Patriots. Seems like the direction they're heading. I feel like this is where the real like crazy top tier, depending on what you want to count as tier 1, I guess, sort of breaks off. There's a number of guys that they could reasonably go with here, just in terms of talent, like Graham and Tet. But I have them taking Will Campbell. It seems like a lot of rumors are pointing towards that. I know Daniel Jeremiah said something about that. He's a top tackle on a lot of teams' boards. And I don't know if this would be my pick personally. I don't think it would be a bad one. I think he's got a real shot to play tackle despite his arms, even though I think it's a concern. And protecting Drake May is obviously a priority. Although I don't agree with necessarily going into the 4th overall pick saying, like, we need to do this certain thing. Like, it's just not my process. I don't think they end up with a bad player here because of it. So, it's not the end of the world.
I was a little worried that you were going to take my next pick here, Matt, because I've seen a lot of mocks where the Patriots go with Mason Graham. And I could see that as well, but I do think I do agree with you. They need to go offense. They probably will go tackle if this is how the board falls. Even though, again, I would still consider Genty. I don't know why people hate that pick, but I would still be open to them taking a running back there at 4. But my pick for Jacksonville at 5th overall will be Mason Graham. I didn't realize quite how bad their defense was, especially their pass defense was the worst in football, even worse than the Carolina Panthers. Their pass rush win rate.
Both now.
Yeah, I don't mean it as disrespect.
It's just Theo I can handle. Both of you 2 boys.
I don't mean it as disrespect, Matt, but like those are
fighting a war on 2 fronts.
They have the worst pass rush win rate in the league last year, the worst EPA per play against the pass. I mean, they're just they just can't do anything. And so in an event where Mason Graham isn't here, I think it's a really tough pick to make. Maybe even a trade back, but with Mason Graham here, I think he's the best defensive player available. They have to go with him.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with Mason Graham to the Jaguars, even though he's a bit undersized. He can get washed around a little bit in the run game, but He also just slides off and between and through a lot of double teams as well, even more often than he actually gets knocked back at all. I think he's got as clear of a wrestling background as I've ever seen, and he just is so comfortable and kind of he's so comfortable twisting himself into knots to get free. And the Jaguars need the defensive help, like you mentioned, Blaiden. And this one seems like it's kind of crystallizing in a nice way through all the mock drafts that I read.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think I'm going to stay kind of chalky here with the Raiders. I think they have to go offense.
Yes.
I think they have to go offense, even though the defense doesn't look great. They got Geno Smith, and what do they have around him? The worst run game in the league. They don't have a big-time wide receiver who can get separation versus man. I understand Bowers is that guy. But on the perimeter, who's it going to be? You don't want like a Cowboys situation where CD is doubled all the time in the slot and there's just no one on the perimeter who can win it all. So whether it be wide receiver or running back or even offensive line, I could get down with because it would help the run game. I just think you can't get Geno and call it all good on offense. There's no run game. There's no one to stretch the field. So it's got to be someone that gives a little bit of help and actually makes the offense balanced as opposed to just like, hey, we got the quarterback, but quarterback isn't the guy who ends up with the ball on any play. Every play is for the wide receivers and running back, and it's just so bad outside of Bowers for the Raiders. So I'm going with Genty. The Raiders were 32nd in rushing success rate last year. They were 30th in yards after contact per attempt with 2.4. That's what I wrote down. 2.4. And their missed tackle rate in the run game was 32nd, 8.7%. They don't have anybody who can shed a tackle. They added Raheem Mostert, but he did not have a good year last year. And Genty's as good of a running back prospect as there's been, as we've seen. Since Saquon, I'd say. Just looking at the other guys taken in the top half of the first round since 2010. There's Gibbs, there's Robinson, there's Barkley, there's Fournette, McCaffrey, Zeke, Gurley, Trent Richardson, CJ Spiller, and Ryan Matthews, actually.
CJ Spiller, that's a nostalgic name, even though he went to Clemson. I'll say this even with Genty too. A couple of things. Number one, you have to say since Saquon, because he was such a great prospect and because he's turned out really good in the NFL, but like Genty is just as good of a prospect as Saquon was. He is. I don't think that's
a stretch.
He is.
They're different. They're kind of different.
They're different backs. It's like, but Genty is, in my mind, about as good as a running back prospect could be, essentially. I mean, obviously, there's always room to be better. I don't know if he was AP good. That was before my time, and I know he was a ridiculous prospect. But, for 75-80% of NFL history, Genty would be the first overall pick if he were, if this was 1992, someone's trading 4 first-round draft picks for him or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
And ruining their team for a decade. And it would be sick. I also think that a lot
Trent Richardson selection. He's the first overall pick.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of people will be against the Genty pick because, well, he won't fix those rushing numbers by himself. And there's a lot of truth to that. But while I think that running back is a less valuable position, I also think that there isn't any offensive lineman who's nearly the prospect that Genty is. I mean, not even close. And we also wouldn't hold any offensive lineman to the standard that we would hold Genty to, which is if you said, let's take, I don't know, like Mimbu or whoever, let's take, whatnot, you wouldn't say, well, that guy won't fix the run game by himself. Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I think it's okay to take Genty and say, it might not make the offensive line perfect. It might not be we're the number one rushing game, year one, but that doesn't make it a bad pick. So yeah, I think this is the top of his range. But I can get behind Genty. I just think he's going to be a beast.
I think so too. I mean, one thing that shocked me was how many receiving yards he had the year before last. I mean, he had 569.
He's so good. I mean, he's just so good. And people, we said this on the last podcast. He's people have forgotten just the level of running back prospect he is.
Yeah, I'd say Barkley was better than him just because Barkley was so fast and had so much home run speed that I don't think that Genty has. But after Barkley, I mean, I think he's a Fournette level prospect. I think he's better than Fournette because Fournette didn't have the make you miss ability or the receiving ability that Genty has, and probably he isn't the blocker either coming out of college. He was just bigger and looked like Adrian Peterson at times because he was so big and fast. But the nuances of making people miss, like Genty's way clear, receiving Genty's way clear. So yeah, I think Genty's would be a good pick at 6. And of all those names that I just listed, it's a good hit rate if drafting a running back top half of the first round. I mean, Barkley's offensive player of the year, McCaffrey's offensive player of the year, Gurley is offensive player of the year, Zeke is first team all pro, Gibbs and Robinson are on their way. Like even Ryan Matthews was a Pro Bowl player, although he was hurt all the time. Like Spiller had some big seasons. Fournette had some good playoff runs. Like the only real bust there is Richardson. So if there is a running back prospect that looks that good in college and warrants that selection, like most of the time it works out. And I think with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas, his history working with Marshawn Lynch and running the ball as much as he has, I really think that they'll gravitate towards Genty and create that balance along with Geno Smith where they can put you in the conflict where the pass game and the run game is like so much improved compared to last year. I really don't think there's a better way to spend their resources than taking Genty at 6. Maybe if Simmons was totally healthy, I might go with that. I like Campbell, like I said, but they're just not Genty. And they could take Tet or Golden or something or whoever, and that would bolster the passing game, but the run would certainly be the worst in the league again. So I think Genty's got to be the pick.
I agree. Richardson's the exception, not the rule. Matt, you're on the clock with the New York Jets. What are you going to do?
I'm thinking, I know they went Fashanu last year, but I think there's, from just some of the articles that I read and whatnot, I think there's a real chance that they end up going tackle here again, especially with the hype that M'Boo has gotten. I know he's like the number 1 tackle on a lot of teams' boards. I know that they've met with him. And I think a lot of other guys in this range either aren't necessarily the biggest fit for their needs, although, again, me personally, I think PPA no matter what. Or they just can't like really, or just like a little bit too early for this, but I don't think they're quite the tier of prospect. It's not to say that there isn't a lot of things that could happen. I think that's what's interesting about this draft is once you get to like, I don't know, the 6th spot, the 7th spot, the options start to really open up. But I'm going to go M'Boo here. I think that's going to end up being their pick. I think they're going to take a chance on somebody who's super athletic and, has the ability to turn into like a pretty special guy.
I think that's fair. This Panthers pick up next seems pretty easy, even though it's probably not what I would do. But everyone I see says that they're taking Jalen Walker. Like, without fail, like every single source, you're like, oh, the Panthers love Jalen Walker. They're taking Jalen Walker if he's there at 8. And it looks like he probably will be, and in this mock he is. So it wouldn't be the guy I would take coming off the edge. I would probably either go with Mike Green or maybe Ezzy here, but Jalen Walker will be the pick.
I think that would be a fire pick for them. I really do.
I don't know what to think about this. A lot of people that I really trust have him as like a straight up blue chip, like a top 5 prospect. I don't doubt his athleticism, and there's a lot of good plays on tape, but like, okay, I'll just be honest, because I want to talk myself into it because it's what the Panthers are doing, and I'm not like this guy sucks and I don't see it at all. No. But like, that one play where he like chases down Arch Manning? That's not something that would make you draft a guy at 8, right? Like, it's a good play. When he blitzes, or there's another one in that Texas game where he gets like a cleanup sack. Like Ewers tries to step through and he's able to like disengage from the block and run it. It's like, that's not really like some dominant pass rush win. You know what I mean? And there's some plays like that. I won't deny it. Like he gets Banks with a push-pull really, really nastily. But I don't know. I just think like the quarterback spy stuff and some of the pass rush stuff off like blitzes and whatnot is not making me feel like he's going to go be a dominant force necessarily. On the other hand, I think he's a great athlete. I think the pursuit stuff, like it definitely matters to some extent. Maybe I'm underestimating how special he is at that stuff. But is he somebody that I could line up and just say, go win against NFL offensive tackles as a pass rusher, and he's going to do it?
I mean, Mike Green is.
I think the pursuit stuff, yeah, like if he's a spy and he tracks down Manning, that's not really beating anybody, right? But that kind of sideline to sideline speed is helpful as like a run defender. You know, if you got to go chase down a run from the backside and blow it up, or, you know, there's plenty of athletic quarterbacks that you got to go chase down, and he can do that. And that first step and that explosiveness that you see on that play helps him convert speed to power. Even though he's a bit of a shorter armed guy, he can still go on and do that, I think, better than a lot of the high end edge rushers in this class. So I just think he'd be such a weapon for them in that scheme. It's an ideal scheme fit. Like getting him in Evero Agero's scheme would be just perfect, because you got Derek Brown in the interior, you've got Wharton now, and you've got Bobby Brown to really mug up the interiors and occupy all the guards. And then he's just one-on-one on those tackles and can really, you know, get them off balance with just how explosive he really is. And if he plays off the ball and is in certain packages, the blitzing that Evero Agero can dial up can open up creases for him to really burst through. And I do think there's a bit of like a Troy Polamalu to his game where he can really time those up well, combined with his explosiveness, and he can just explode through the A gap and really like track you down. So I love how much he gets after it. I think he handles himself well in the run game. I think he deals with contact better than like a lot of the other edges in this class. Like even Ezeraku, I don't think he's the type of run defender that Jalen Walker is. I don't think that Mike Green is the type of run defender that Jalen Walker is. So I think he's got a good blend of skills, even though I understand he's not the master of any one thing.
I'll admit though, there isn't necessarily any guy here at 8 to pick where he's just like a dominant edge rusher already who has no holes or no flaws or is just perfect in every single way and is set to go and going to have 15 sacks year one, right? So I think he is a great athlete. I agree about the speed to power stuff. So I'll get on board with it. Although I'll be real with you, at 8, I would not be mad at Tet here at all. I wouldn't be mad at several receivers here.
Matt, I was literally about to ask you. I wouldn't even go edge here. I would go with Tet. I think McMillan would be the like best player available, at least on. Well, he wouldn't be BPA on my board actually, but probably best need available for the Panthers.
Tet would be a good blend of something that they could really use, and I think a prospect worthy of this. I kind of am on board with Tet being a little bit underrated at this point. I think he'd be a good player for them, but you're right to pick Walker. That seems like it's what they're going to do, unless maybe the Jaguars take him.
I haven't seen a single mock draft or a single like reporter say anything other than Jalen Walker.
Yeah, they're not very good at not tipping their hand, it seems.
It's like almost as clear as the Cam Ward pick at 1 at this point.
It's about as clear as you can get for an 8th overall pick.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I see some Michael Williams mocks for that.
That's apparently like the other guy that they like. I won't be mad at a Georgia guy though. You know, I'll scout the helmet here.
Pretty good hit rate.
They play for a team that's good, so they have to be good.
It's a pretty good hit rate drafting Georgia defensive players. Theo, you're on the clock with the Saints.
Bruh.
This might be the hardest pick of the draft.
Dude, it is the hardest pick of the draft. The Saints need everything. Absolutely everything.
In some ways, it makes it the easiest pick of the draft.
Yeah, I can't really get it
You
wrong.
can do whatever you want, man.
I've written down like a couple players that I might take for each team, and with the Saints, it's like the entire first round. So Derek Carr has a shoulder issue and might miss all of next season. That's
you
not
could
good.
take Shador Sanders or
Shador
Jalen
is here.
Milroe.
Shador is here, and maybe I should just go with that. If you don't have a quarterback, it's kind of the first thing that you need. If you're Kellen Moore and you're looking at your team now, and you got no quarterback, and you got the 9th overall pick, you may want to go just quarterback, and that's the end of it. But there's so much else that they need, and you got to get the quarterback position right. And overdrafting somebody when the roster is completely decrepit, that might not be handling the position right. And Derek Carr might miss the whole season, but maybe he won't. Like, it's kind of early to tell exactly, and the draft is in 4 days. So it's a bit tough. They also have Brandon Staley as their defensive coordinator now, who famously likes to play the two high shells, lighter boxes. He likes to take away the pass first. And at the same time, they were 31st in yards per carry allowed last year already. So they need major help in that area, perhaps even more than they need a quarterback. And they also missed more tackles than anybody else, or not anybody else, but they had the 6th highest missed tackle rate in football last year. Their secondary really couldn't tackle, headlined by Alontae Taylor, who had a 20% missed tackle rate. They could use offensive line. They could use wide receiver, like Brandon Cooks is slated to be a somewhat significant contributor for them next year, which is not good. Olave has had a ton of health issues and a ton of concussions. Man, it's kind of tough to decide what to do for them. Chase Young had 25% of all their team pressures last year, which was the 5th highest, like, of one guy in the whole league. And Chase Young isn't even that good of a pass rusher. And Carl Granderson's contract is about to balloon from $6 million next season to $18 million the year after that. So how much longer is he going to be around, or is he going to be a cap
listening to this,
a cap casualty?
Like, hands over their face.
Also, an interesting stat while I was looking at the Saints, Mickey Loomis has traded up in the draft 20 times. He has traded down 0 times.
You're kidding. That's a
I'm
nuts
not
stat.
kidding.
That's a crazy stat.
I know.
Never trading down.
20 times he's traded up, 0 times he's traded down. So that's not on the table. A trade down.
He's got the Super Bowl. Whatever. He has a 2017 draft. Whatever. I hate his process, man.
This is actually kind of insane, because we just had this whole like segment in the last episode where we were talking about, like, yeah, actually trading up is better than
trading up 20
down.
times and never trading down is that's different than like trading up isn't always bad. These are two different things.
Different things, yes. Shout out to him. He traded up with the Packers and took Davenport, and we took Jair. I think that's how that worked. I think we traded down and then back up for Jair. But regardless.
So is he going to trade down for the first time ever?
I don't think so. I don't think that's what this history is suggesting to me, that a trade down is imminent. But I got to make a decision here. I'm talking about all the things they need. Will Sanders go at 9 if he falls? I think he might keep falling, to be completely honest with you. I think he might keep falling past the Saints.
I think so too.
What I'm really intrigued in would be a Milroe selection for them, because of what Moore just did with Hurts. But that might be for later.
Kellen Moore would love Jalen Milroe.
I know.
He would. He would have so much fun.
I know. I'm going to take Michael Williams for them.
Okay.
And I'm going to let Shador keep falling, and I'm going to see, maybe I'll ask if I can trade up as Mickey Loomis to get Milroe later. So keep that in the back of your mind. But I just think, man, like, Chase Young is an underrated player, I think, a little bit. People think he's like totally worthless, and he's not. But he wasn't great in run defense last year. Cam Jordan's getting up there. Granderson has not been performing up to his contract, so they might need to cut bait. I think continuing to add bodies to that edge room is never a bad idea, and Mike Hill wouldn't be relied on right away, and he is one of the youngest players in this draft and a bit of a project, so okay. I think that could work out.
Long-term move there.
A long-term move.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be ass next year. That was my takeaway listing all the Saints' problems. It's not looking good.
It's going to be ass. Matt, how are the Chicago Bears going to be after this selection you make for them?
They're going to be wonderful if I get this thing right. I would take Genty if he was here. I'll start off by saying I would slam that pick. I think it makes perfect sense for Ben Johnson. I think it adds another element to their offense. They will be the third, fourth, fifth consecutive offseason champions if they do select Genty. We will go to war to defend them, and we will get hype about Caleb Williams and his supporting cast again. I'm not scared of it. But since he's not here, I think there would be a pretty good chance that they address offensive line again and possibly left tackle. It's one of their biggest needs still. Obviously, they've already put a ton of work into the O-line, but I think when you've got a premium pick like this and there's some premium tackles, I think the top four guys are pretty good. There's a real chance that that's what they end up saying, why don't we just get this settled, especially with what Ben Johnson values. I think they could also go edge here, but to be completely honest, Michael Williams might be like the guy who's next up, and if he goes and the Saints skip on tackle, I kind of wonder, maybe they do the opposite. They can feel like if the Saints go with a tackle, then they're like, we're in a little bit better spot to take edge. If the Saints go edge, we're in a little bit better spot to take tackle. Not necessarily going to work out like that because, who knows how their boards are specifically. But I'm just going to go with Kelvin Banks here. He's a guy who's been really good in college for a really long time. He's been a big deal and a high recruit for a reason. We talked about him last episode. Not the guy that I'm the absolute highest on of these top tackles. If I were making the selection, I might go Simmons, but there's no doubt that he's got a lot of movement skills that you just look for that not a lot of dudes at that size have. There's only a handful of guys like that. And honestly, I think you might be a little bit better off trying to address edge rusher later than you are tackle later, although I don't necessarily, this will be the final time I say it, I don't necessarily agree with that process. But to me, Banks would be a wise pick here. And if you do that and you hit on him and you have this wonderful offensive line and you can maybe pick up a different back, because I really do want to see the Bears get, a running back who can really add to the rush game rather than just be somebody who is sort of looking for the offensive line to do all the creating. Then all of a sudden you have an offense that can be plus in a lot of different ways, right? From almost every aspect, every guy in that room and from a scheme perspective. So I'm going to go Banks.
Not Campbell?
Campbell went at 4.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah,
I'm
Campbell's gone.
silly. It's okay. I wasn't paying attention. I was on my phone.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I
like to be on my phone.
It's not a...
I was watching YouTube.
I was watching... That's all right. Scrolling through TikTok. So
he was watching Brain Rot.
I was watching a video essay. I just had to... My bad.
He was watching a Minecraft Let's Play. It's okay. So I'm on the clock now with the San Francisco 49ers here. And this is another pick where there's kind of a few different things they could do, but not for the same reason the Saints, where it's the Saints need everything. It just feels like the 49ers have a few small things that they could address. The most common that I've seen is offensive and defensive line. I've seen a couple throwaways at corner, and I wouldn't hate going Will Johnson here. I love Will Johnson, but I don't know if that is necessarily the biggest thing they could do. Defensive line, Walter Nolan would be a great addition for them. Josh Simmons would be a great addition for them on the offensive line. I do have Simmons as the higher player, so that's going to be what I go with. But I could understand going defensive line. I've seen a lot of fans say if they don't get defensive line, you're gonna have to institutionalize me. But I think plenty of them would be happy with Simmons here at 11.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see it play out like this. I mean, I feel like in drafts that are a little bit weaker, and I feel like it's fair to say this draft is probably a little bit weaker, maybe.
It's weird.
You see teams sort of lean on tackles, and I wouldn't be shocked if everyone say like, well, we can get a guy who, maybe a lot of them are dealing with like arm length issues or whatever, but we can get a guy who can just move the way you need to move, and that's just so rare and produced at a standard level at college already, so you're not getting a total project. I could see teams sort of like going on a quick run of those guys. I mean, I've picked 3 of the tackles, so I really agree with it. I think it really makes sense.
Oh my gosh, you did.
But I mean, like the Patriots one, I feel like I'm just going off reports for that one. Kind of the same with the Jets. And then honestly, Banks was not my first choice for the Bears, but I stand by
So
that.
it goes.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think Simmons is a potential superstar left tackle. Like his tape versus Iowa is insane. His tape versus Oregon is great. We talked about it on the offensive line episode, how he kind of breaks
Go
the
watch
mold
that
of
episode.
he's not just a guy who the game comes and goes and he just executes all of his assignments, even though he does. Like he stands out with some of the highlight reel blocks that he's able to make and how he's able to get out in space and how he's able to cut guys off who are in front of him on the defensive line. And Shanahan, he likes throwing the ball, man. He likes guys who can do that. I know, like, would he play right tackle? Maybe. That's fine with me. I mean, Joe Alt made that transition from left tackle. They had Slater, and then he moved over to right.
He was really good.
It was really good. So I think Simmons tackle isn't as glaring of a need as defensive tackle for them, I think. But also Simmons is better than Nolan and Grant, in my opinion.
I agree. That's kind of my philosophy. It's like it wouldn't shock me if they went with either of those guys too, but I'm just thinking like if it's coming down to like it's a coin toss, I'm just going to take the better player. So
yeah, I like it. So that puts me on the board with the Cowboys, and I'll make this one quick. I think they're going to go wide receiver. Yeah. Line is the only other thing I was kind of looking at, but reading some of their quotes, like they talked about Terrence Steele. Jerry Jones talked about Terrence Steele, and he said, I think he's going to play much better in the scheme. And he was talking about how good of a run blocker he is and how new offensive coordinator Clayton Adams is going to run it more. So it didn't seem like he was really itching to add competition at right tackle. I think that they're just going to keep Steele there and just run the ball more. And then Zach Martin retired, but it also sounds like Brock Hoffman is pretty competent. And like Shadi said, like, I'd never bet against Hoffman. And it seemed like people online kind of liked him and the way he stepped in and played well for them last year. So it sounds like he's going to be the right guard. And it might not be the most glaring need, especially with Matt taking all the good offensive linemen from me early. So wide receiver it is. The skill position group is absolutely abysmal outside of CeeDee Lamb, who can get doubled or get injured, and then you're just cooked. So I'll go with Tet on the outside. I'll go with Tet.
Okay. I honestly thought you were going to go Igbuka here.
I love Igbuka, but I don't think he's going above Tet. I think Igbuka's got all the nuance that you could possibly want. He's a better blocker. I think better overall route runner, but Tet, so flexible, so fluid with the ball in the air, adjusting to make catches behind him in the air. He really just rips it out of there, snatches it. He runs great routes for somebody so big. He's got great breaks. Wish he was a little bit more physical at the line of scrimmage instead of, tapping his feet a little bit. So he's got a little bit to work on. And I think in terms of making really sharp cuts and really running away from people on crossers, like that's not quite there. But I do think that he's someone who can stretch the field vertically because of his catch radius, and he's not slow. Like he can get vertical separation on goes. I've seen it happen many times. I've seen it happen versus like Travis Hunter, for example.
And you've seen him run away from guys in open space too. He's got those crazy long strides. I agree with you. The thing that makes him so special is that ball tracking and body control to make catches through contact. I think I think it was you that said it when we did our wide receivers episode. He is what people thought Quentin Johnston.
He's the actual height, weight, speed guy.
He is the actual height, weight.
And I don't think Dak has played with a big like contested catch receiver like that, as far as I can think of. So I'd be really interested to see him and CD together with Dak.
Was Dez still
really cool.
there?
Oh yeah, Dez was 100% still there. So yeah, that's my mistake.
I don't know. I don't know how. I mean, Dez's like peak was like only a few years. So I don't know exactly how long that was, but
he definitely got at least 1 year with Dak as a Pro Bowler. But I mean, it was 2016 and 2017. He didn't have 1,000 yards or anything, but Dak did play with him, and he fits that mold to a T. So what I just said was wrong. But anyway, Ted, we'll move on. That's pretty easy.
Matt, you got Miami.
Mm-hmm. It's another team that totally could be thinking tackle, obviously, but I just don't think there's a guy who's quite 13 pick level. Although you never know. Mm-hmm. I feel like corner also makes a lot of sense here after losing Ramsey. It's something they really need to address. And I think Will Johnson could fit well there. He's probably the overall highest regarded corner outside of Travis Hunter. I have some concerns about his long speed, of course, but there's no denying that when he's playing downhill, he's a playmaker in the best way possible. He's super physical. He likes to get in the run game. He's really good at reading and reacting to stuff. If you run a lot of zone and you just let him do his thing, I feel like not only can he be kind of locked down in his assignment, but he can make a lot of plays and produce a lot of turnovers, right? I think about like the Fresno State game. He got burned really bad deep one time. I was like, all right, maybe the long speed's a little bit of concern, but then he closed that one out with a pick six, jumping like a flat or whatever it was. So
screen,
screen. Mm-hmm. So I think Johnson here at 13 makes a lot of sense for him.
Will Johnson's my number 2 corner. I love him a lot. So I would be over the moon if I were a Dolphins fan and they got Will Johnson. But I'm not a Dolphins fan, so I'm not over the moon. But with the Colts next, everyone is having them go tight end. But I have seen it go split more with Warren and Loveland. Now it is still leaning more Warren at this point. So that is who I'm going to take here because that seems to be the consensus to go for the Colts. And he would be a great fit. But man, I would love them to take. I think Loveland would be an absolute home run here. But I will take Warren because that seems to be the consensus.
The Warren end around that Shane Steichen calls week 1 will be generational. He'll find a ways. He'll find a way.
No, he's an easy guy to get the ball to for sure. But I think he's going to be so good. He's just always open. Such a great route runner. So that puts you back on the clock, Theo. Atlanta.
Well, they need defense.
Yeah.
Obviously. The only question is, like, what is the more pressing need? Is it cornerback or is it edge? And I landed maybe in a kind of a surprising place, but I'm going to go with Jahdae Barron here for Atlanta.
Ooh.
I think Raheem Morris understands the value and how to weaponize a nickel player. I mean, he was part of that Rams team when they moved Jalen Ramsey from the outside to the star, which was the subject of a million scheme articles and like exactly why they were doing that. But yeah, I think Barron is somebody who would be of great use for Raheem Morris. He is 5'11", 200 pounds. That's 30 pounds heavier than D. Alford, who's their currently projected starting nickel. And I think you need that size if you're going to be this safety, linebacker, corner hybrid type guy. And I think Barron as a nickel is one of the best overall players in this class. I mean,
I could agree with that.
He tackles really well. He takes the ball away. He is really disruptive at the catch point. Like some of the things he does to take the ball away is cool. Like it's not like these throws are just landing in his hands. I've seen him make one-handed interceptions. He'll really try to reach around you and scratch and claw to get the ball out. I just think that player at that position will really speak to Raheem Morris's soul. And after week 10, they were averaging 2.7 sacks a game, Atlanta. Ebiketie kind of started to show out. They started to stop the run a little bit better, and they were in more pass rushing situations. They had 16 sacks the last 6 weeks compared to 10 the first 11. Now, maybe that's just a complete small sample size, weird outlier, or maybe it's, Ruka Rororo and Ebiketie are starting to grow a little bit. They found something with their off-ball linebackers blitzing. Maybe Raheem Morris thinks, hey, we have some internal growth with our front. I can sort of scheme up some easy looks with my blitzes. I can, there's something we can go in the second round and find some edge players too. They really haven't taken an edge in the first in a long time. I wonder if the nickel just is a little bit more, no pun intended, barren from like a hope perspective of growth. So I'm going with Barron, the nickel, and he'll slot in next to AJ Terrell and Mike Hughes. And I think be a baller. I would absolutely love this pick. So I'm going with Jahdae Barron for Atlanta.
Okay, that brings it back to me with the Cardinals. I like the Barron pick. Honestly, my idea was to go with Barron for 16.
Yeah.
Get owned.
I was kind of counting on you, and you screwed me up. That being said, I feel like if the Cardinals landed in this situation, just with how the value has sort of lined up for them here, interior defensive line would probably end up being the play. At least that's what it looks like to me on paper. But I have a question for you guys because I'm kind of struggling with this decision. Do you think the Cardinals would prefer Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant, who I think is probably a little bit higher on people's boards and maybe when we talked about him a while ago for defensive line? And honestly, he's another guy where the more I think about him, the higher I can be on him. He's a really special athlete, a dominant force against the run. And I kind of believe, maybe I'm tricking myself with for his size stuff, but I think he's got an ability to more than push the pocket as a pass rusher at times. It can be developed. So where would you...
Kenneth Grant is huge.
He's a big guy. There's no question about that.
I think I'd go with Grant. I think about Jordan Davis getting picked while Jonathan Gannon was in Philly. I think about some of the things. I think Grant is really good at batting passes down, and he's good at pushing the pocket, and he's good at with his hands and swiping things away. I think he's got a little bit more of a plan than Walter Nolan, or a lot more of a plan, who's, more explosive purely. But I do think that Grant is a little bit more disruptive overall from what I saw. And I think he's a little bit more unique, I think, just with how big he is.
Well,
and I think, when I think of that defense, I just think unique. No one else really does what Jonathan Gannon does.
What's interesting, I was actually looking into Howie Roseman and his draft strategy or whatever, and I saw this quote talking about the thing you have to remember in the first round is that you have a chance to get a unique player. Don't focus on necessarily your biggest need, but go out and get a guy who's unique. There's certain types of dudes who are just going to go in the first round and you can't get them any other time. And I agree. I kind of feel like Grant is more unique of a prospect than Nolan. Now, maybe that's us being Grant is cooler, and then we're rewording it into a way that makes sense. But I think Grant perfectly makes sense here. And I think that's a solid choice for them. But I would go Barron if Barron was here.
I think that's fair. But I don't think Grant would be a bad selection at all. I think he'd be really good. And that puts me on the clock with the Cincinnati Bengals. And we were talking about me trading up for Abdul Carter earlier. I do think they have to go defense. I don't think there's any other way to shape this. I've seen a lot of different edge guys thrown around at this selection. I've seen Shamar Stewart. I've seen Mike Green. I've seen pretty much everyone, James Pierce. I've seen Jahad Campbell thrown at this selection. But you know who I haven't seen? And this is who I want to take, but I feel like I can't because he hasn't been projected here at all. I haven't seen any reports of the Bengals even liking him a little bit, is Donovan Ezeraku, or again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
You're right.
But like, I feel like Ezzy would be the perfect player here. Like, he doesn't have the explosive first step, but you don't like need that when you've already got Hendrickson, and he's such a great run defender. I feel like he like fills so many voids of their defense with just one guy. But I haven't seen it like pick or reported that the Bengals are interested in him. So I feel like I can't pick him here.
I think you can take him. I don't think that's crazy. I mean, I don't know if they've met with him or.
I can't find anything.
And he's not as highly regarded as Mike Green, but he doesn't have character issues.
Right.
And he's super productive.
He just feels like such a
everyone
safe
knows
pick
his
for them.
name. Like it's not like you're taking Landon Jackson here or something out of Arkansas.
Yeah.
Like he ran the fastest shuttle time of any edge, which is like I think really important. So I think he's had a great pre-draft process, super productive. Like I don't think it's crazy.
He's just a good player.
Yeah, he's
He's just a good player.
And here's what I'll say. The knock that you could have on this as well, it's another lighter guy, and it's like who's probably not going to be a demon against the run, and pairing that with Hendrickson.
But he is a good run defender. Like that's
I don't.
He is.
I think he's an all. He is. I think he's an all right run defender.
Or Shamar.
Yeah, exactly. But here's the thing. I think it would be dumb for the Bengals to base their first round draft pick around the other edge they have currently, who they aren't willing to commit to. Who they aren't giving a big contract and who is 30. Don't get me wrong, he's the best player on that defense right now, but I think if you're not willing to bring him in long term, then you shouldn't be moving down your board to pick a different edge if that's what you want to do here, especially since it's like, we can't pick a guy who's maybe a little lighter.
Yeah.
Mike Green, no. James Pierce, no. It's like you're kind of eliminating a lot of options for yourself. And I think the way that you make bad picks is you take a bunch of players off your board for like a short-term issue. That to me would be just the worst prospect. Not necessarily that the heavier guys are bad, but making the pick for that reason, I would disagree with strongly. So I can get behind Azaraku here. I think it's a great pick, honestly.
I think it would be really good, but if it's like not fitting as far as like, oh, this is what they would do, then I would take Campbell, because Campbell would be the best player left on my board. So, but if you guys think Ezzy would be a fine pick here, then I will go with him, because I think that would be a home run for them.
Yeah, do it. I support that.
Let's go. So Theo, you're on the clock with the 49ers. Or not?
The Seahawks.
Seahawks.
They're going to get you for mistaking those two.
They're in the same. Like, I don't know how in the world I looked at the Seahawks logo and thought 49ers. Anyway, you're on the clock.
Yeah, I think that my first thought is offensive line, I think that's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to go with Gray Zabel.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Gray Zabel. I think he's a scheme fit for them in a big way. Like I said on the last episode, he's a 99th percentile vert guy for an offensive lineman. Like his first step and his cutoff speed is so freaking good. And he can really create that displacement that they want in the wide zone schemes. Like he can get out and run. He can be the point of attack if he's your tackle. He can be, somebody who's reaching if he's a guard or center. And if it means anything, Tony Pauline said that he thinks Zabel's the Seahawks guy. So there is a bit of buzz connecting those two, and some insiders who think he might be the guy there. So I think it makes sense. Yeah. I think that their solution to losing Geno Smith is going to be, well, this year we're going to be more balanced. We have, what's his name? The offensive coordinator, the one whose family is all coaches. I can't remember. It's all right. But he came over from New Orleans.
His name is slipping me too. I know exactly who you're talking about.
It's Clint Kubiak is what it is.
Yes.
Yes. My bad. He came over from New Orleans, and they took Fuaga in the first last year for much the same reason. Like, yeah, his pass protection as a tackle and the way he used his hands wasn't always great. And that's the same gripe I have with Zabel, but you draft him for that reaching ability in the run game, and he was a great fit in New Orleans in that scheme. And I think Zabel is something similar, albeit I think he'll be at a different position. So I'm going to go with him. They'll run the ball more with Charbonnet and with K9 and be a more balanced play action heavy offense, and hope that makes up for the loss of pure drop back passing ability and poise. So I'm going with Gray Zabel.
Yeah, I think if there's any team that's going to spend big on and upgrading the interior offensive line, it's going to be them. They got a lot of picks to do it, but I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. I've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've got needs across the defense. I do feel like good value here is starting to get into some of these wide receivers. Only 2 taken through the first 18 picks is a little light, and this is when I start to really like these dudes, but I don't know if they're going to be too heavy on that. They just picked McMillan, and he was kind of a sizable part of their offense, and they have Evans and Godwin, of course. So I don't want to do that. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with Campbell here, and that's their selection. Yep. I think this is when you start to get into pretty good value with him, and maybe bringing him up as the Levante David heir apparent would be wise to do. Clearly, they know the value of a strong off-ball linebacker. And while David is still, going strong, there's only so much longer. It's a year-by-year thing with him. So if I'm them, I'm sitting here and saying this is a nice way for the board to fall. They could also go edge, and I wouldn't be surprised. And I think you could make a really good argument if I'm a Buccaneers fan and I'm listening to saying, I don't know if you really like Mike Green, and there's a character concerns, of course, or like one of the other edges like Pierce or whoever, saying that might be better value than taking an off-ball linebacker. I can understand that too. And if Ezeraku had fallen here, that would have been my pick over Campbell for sure. But I'd still be pretty happy. I'd still feel like we're leaving with a really strong player who, in a different world, could maybe even, be closer to 10 than he is to 20.
Yeah, Campbell is, to me, a top 10 player in this class. So that's an awesome value, I think, at 19. That puts me on the clock with the Denver Broncos, and I am going to take the next running back off the board here. There's a couple things they could do, but I think Amari and Hampton would be the pick that happens here. It's all I've seen. I saw it bounce back and forth for a couple of months between Hampton and Loveland here. I've even occasionally seen receiver go, but at this point, it is everyone and their mom is saying Amari and Hampton goes at 20 to the Denver Broncos, and given their current running back room, I think it makes a lot of sense for them to really improve it and give Bo Nix a little bit of weight off his shoulders for this offense.
It's a really complete roster, I think, right now. The defense has pass rush. It has linebacker play now that Greenlaw is there. It's got an all-pro in the secondary too, Pat Surtain, obviously. So that's looking really nice. The offensive line looks great. They hardly allowed any sacks all of last year. I think the receiver room is a little bit underrated. You've got Vele, who had a nice rookie season, and Cortland Sutton, who's like a pretty decent one, I think. Like kind of that low-end one, but still a one. And then I could see him going with like Luther Burden with how many screens they threw last year and like the yak threat that he is. That's kind of a flavor of wide receiver that they don't quite have right now. But the room there is a lot better than the running back room, I think. And to add someone like Hampton, it might be the final piece of the puzzle.
Because right now their running back room is Jalou McLaughlin, Audric Estime.
I do love Estime.
So do I, man. I still love it.
I'm surprised that you don't think there's a chance they go Henderson. I've heard a ton of noise for Henderson.
Really?
Dude,
I feel like
there's a ton of noise for Henderson, but do you know the odds that Hampton goes in the first round right now on like DraftKings? It's what? Minus 1,400.
Jeez.
Like it seems high. Like Vegas considers Hampton a lock for the first round.
I mean, Hampton could go as high. There's been rumors that he's going to go at 12, which is
You know, Matt, I'm
gracious.
seeing a lot of like fans clamoring that they
Maybe it's just fans, and I'm like, yeah, I'm hearing a lot of noise.
But I mean, negative 1,400 though, like minus 1,400 is such a lock that like 12 must be in play. I mean, 10 you hear a lot of running back hype to the Bears, even if it's not Genty. You'll see Henderson mocked
and
there.
I like Hampton. I'm Hampton FC.
Oh, we know.
Let's not like set our guy up here. You know.
Yeah.
Let's stay in reasonable talks. I'll be real with you. I question if the Broncos receiver room is good enough to pass up on. Not that I'm disagreeing with your selection in terms of like predictive. Yeah. Like I think Hampton's a perfectly fine pick. I would, as someone who I think running back can be worth taking highly. I mean, I really like Igbuka. I really like Burden. Golden's a strong contender here. I would definitely think about receiver if I were them. Not only from just a value standpoint, but I mean, I don't even know how much of a prospect straight up advantage you're getting with a guy like Amari and Hampton is kind of my thought. So
yeah,
I think Hampton wouldn't be a bad pick. I think he'll be a good player. I think he's become a little bit underrated. Every time I see someone trash him on Twitter, I start clenching my teeth. They don't get it. They don't get his play style. They don't understand him like I do. But yeah, I would go receiver.
Yeah. Igbuka, I think, would be an amazing pick there.
So. Yeah.
But you are the Pittsburgh Steelers, Theo.
I am, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good save.
It was a good save. I asked my cousin's a Steelers fan, what he wanted the Steelers to do, and he said it doesn't matter. We're fucked regardless. So take that how you will.
I'm so hard-hitting reporting. I asked my cousin, he doesn't care. Well, Theo, what would you do?
What would I do?
What would you do?
If I was the Steelers, I mean, I'd like to know what Aaron Rodgers is doing. I'd probably call him and be like, are you in? We kind of need to know right now. Because if he's not in, you can't start Mason Rudolph.
No.
Nope. Can't. They said they can. They can't.
They can't.
They can't.
So I read some Steelers guy say that they have a first round grade on Dart and that they also like Sanders.
If they have a first round grade on Dart, dude, like
at this point, I think I gotta take Sanders. Like that. I think Rodgers is not signed. He is talking about how he's emphasizing his personal life and retirement's on the table. You have no quarterback who's serious. I think you've made this bed for yourself, and he's slid down the board in this mock. He's there at 21 now, and I feel like if you're the Steelers, you'd have to feel like that's a big win at this point. So I think I've got to go with Shador, even though they have a lot of other needs. They've met with so many defensive linemen.
They have to get a quarterback. They have to do it. They can't. If they roll into Rudolph next year and they're bad because they have Rudolph, I mean, the heat on Tomlin is going to be unbelievable. He really could get fired if they're bad for like this issue that they've had and they just don't even address QB at all and they stink because they didn't address QB.
Yeah.
They don't even have to stink. They have to. If they could be a 10-win team, make the wild card, and if they get dog walked in that game, he could be gone. If they keep Rudolph, fine, they have to win a playoff game, or it's going to be viewed as like very questionable. Or
especially if they pass on Sanders to.
Yeah,
especially if they take
Sanders. So here's the question: if they take Sanders and they miss the playoffs, do you think Tomlin gets fired?
I think they could.
They might have a better shot he might have a better shot missing the playoffs with Sanders than making the playoffs and losing big.
You can't not try at quarterback anymore, and it's tough because this is going to be like the second bad quarterback offseason they've been in on, basically.
Rudolph, by the way, that's not happening.
No, they can't start Mason Rudolph. I cannot believe that they didn't bring Russ back. That to me was such a jarring decision. And
if this is their alternative, like, yeah, why not? Or Fields. I mean, and if they don't take a quarterback here, if I was Rodgers, I'd be like, I would like an $100 million contract. What else are you going to do? The price
He's busy getting sold by the Jets. He's not serious.
He did get trolled by the Jets.
That was awesome.
That's
That's such a funny thing.
That's
They flew him out and said, "Go away."
real.
That brings it to me though with the Chargers at 22. This is another one that I want to ask a question about. This is starting to get really low for the wide receivers, and they need a receiver, right?
Yeah.
But I do buy into a lot of the Loveland hype. And I think there's a real chance with the Harbaugh connection and the fact that they need a tight end and the fact that I think Loveland is a prospect that's perfectly worth the 22. I could see them making that move, and you could make an argument that that's the pass catcher they should go. However, me personally, I'd like to go Egbuka, right? I guess the main question you have to ask yourself is, you know, or maybe one of the questions you have to ask yourself, it's like, who can play outside here a little bit more, right? That's probably Egbuka, but he's somebody who played in the slot a lot. I don't think that's necessarily who he has to be, but it's who he was at OSU. Loveland, maybe he plays in line some, but can he quite do that? And if he has to be in the slot, where does that move Ladd all the time? But Loveland also, I mean, at Michigan sometimes was out wide, and I could see Greg Roman wanting to have a big body out there maybe, and Loveland honestly has the movement skills where I wouldn't hate it necessarily. So there's a lot of different ways that they could go here.
Yeah.
I have a hot take about the Chargers and who they're going to take.
Okay.
I think it's going to be a defensive tackle. I think
that would be next up for me for sure. I just think that I think that Loveland and Egbuka are better prospects than Nolan. I think
that's true as well. But there's also Harmon, and their DT room right now is Tier Tart and Deshaun Hand, and behind them, it's really nothing you'd feel comfortable with. And I just feel like when I look at their whole roster, and I have cardboard cutouts of every single one of their players, so I've visualized this in vivid detail.
I've seen it.
And when you look at the DTs, you're like, this is by far the most glaring room that they need to add to in the draft. Like the wide receivers, obviously, like Egbuka and Golden falling this far, and Loveland, I 100% if that's the direction you want to go in. But like I'm taking Disley and like Conklin and McConkey and Johnston and Darius Davis and whoever and Mike Williams. I just think there's more bodies there than there are in the DT room. Like I really think that's the direction that they got to go.
I think Johnston is
like
I would not know. Johnston cannot be like getting serious time at wide receiver. I don't think.
I disagree with that. I think he can get serious time at receiver, and it might not be good, but he went from 430 yards last year and 2 years ago to 711 yards and 8 touchdowns. And his catch rate went from 56% to 60%. And his yards per touch went from 10 to 12. So he was targeted and dropped a ton of tough catches, and he should have had more production on the go balls. But to me, that improvement from year 1 to year 2 means like you think there's no way he can be your X anymore. Like I just think that
I think they brought back Mike Williams for no reason.
Yeah, but Mike Williams is like, I'd rather have if Johnston fails, maybe Mike Williams is that guy, but I think you can have Johnston out there. Like, I don't think Mike Williams is going to totally take his job. I mean,
I agree,
but it's not my pick.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you about defensive tackle. I mean, you're right. I've got wide receiver Loveland or DT written down. But honestly, it's hard. I'm trying to be too predictive here, I think, rather than maybe what I would do. But I'm just going to roll with Loveland as the pick.
Okay.
I think that DT would be really in play. Here's what would be interesting. Maybe this is reading too much into Harbaugh being the coach. If Grant is still available, then I really think defensive tackle could be their play, and they go Grant.
Yeah. Cardinals go Nolan, and then Grant slips to 22. Yeah.
I could see the argument that you go Nolan here, and then you trust you can get a receiver later, rather than maybe trusting the defensive tackle depth too. But I'm going to go Loveland.
Okay.
I think it's fair. I mean, Disley, if he had better hands, the domino effect.
Loveland's a whole different animal as a receiving threat than Disley.
100%, 100%. And you're right that you can split him out wide, and he can be a bit of a. He can add to the receiver room as well as he does the tight end room. I mean, he just gets open so effortlessly. So it wouldn't be a bad addition, a weapon for Herbert. Always good. But I think they're going to go with DT. I do on draft night.
Okay.
But you do.
It's okay. Just remember.
Well, Theo, I'm here with your Green Bay Packers, and all I see is defensive line, edge, defensive line, edge, defensive line, edge. But I know you would also entertain a wide receiver, so I'm going to let you make this call on what position I take.
No, you make the call. You make the call.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
I think this is I mean, for me, position-wise, I feel like this would be a great way for the draft to go for the Packers.
Well, I'm just saying, because if you tell me, I will pull the trigger on Igbuka.
I think they could. Or Golden. And I honestly think Golden might be more of a Packer type player.
You think Golden's more of a Packer than Igbuka is?
I think so.
I don't know. Maybe. You know the Packers better than I do.
But, look at the RAS, man. That's how you
look
know.
Look at the RAS. I just see every mock draft that I see is like Walter Nolan, or I've seen like just any edge, like the best edge rusher available. Mike Green would go here. Shamar Stewart, I see a decent amount. But to me, Egbuka here at 23 would be rock star. Would be a rock star pick. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah, I think they haven't picked a wide receiver in the first round for a long time, but it doesn't mean that they've never done it. And yeah. I think Shamar Stewart is a lot of what they already have. I mean, Lucas Van Ness is somebody who can really set the edge and defend the run. And you're hoping he shows more from a pass rushing perspective. He's a freak athlete. Mm-hmm. And if you got Stewart, you'd kind of just be back to square one, it feels like, in that area. Maybe. I mean, I could still see them doing it because Van Ness has really done absolutely nothing as a pass rusher. So maybe you just say, well, even though they're both projects, like I'd rather start over because we've seen this and it's nothing. So I could definitely see them going Shamar Stewart 100%. He ticks all the boxes of what they value, but after what happened last year and the fact that all their wide receivers are free agents soon, I can see them adding to that room as well. And Egbuka's got size that they like. He's got speed. He's got versatility inside and out. He can run the end breakers over the middle and make the tough catches. It was kind of his role. He can block better than Golden can, which is important, especially with Christian Watson out at the beginning of the year. He was kind of that like pin pull, get your hands dirty in the box type of receiver, which Igbuka can be a lot more than Golden, although maybe Golden is a better like pure field stretcher with Watson, perhaps missing the beginning of the season or longer. So I think there's a lot. If they had Stewart, Igbuka, and Golden, they might trade back because there's so many good options.
They would. That actually might be the most Packers thing they could do is trade back here and lose all three.
Like, man, there's so many good people. We got to trade back and draft Thornton, man. We have to. Balancing Gutekunst has traded up 8 times and back 5 times.
Where are you seeing these numbers?
I'm seeing those numbers on NFL.com/draft/IQ/
and talking like you're getting some like secret stat that like finding this NFL.com NFL websites.
Yeah, there's like
am I acting like it's a secret?
No, I'm acting like that. I was like, where are you seeing this, bro?
Yeah, they got it on
ESPN,
NFL.com, Amazon,
Yahoo Sports, man. I'm gonna take Igbuka. I think it's too much of a home run to pass up on a guy who I think is one of the like guaranteed good players in this class.
Mm-hmm.
So, hope Packers fans are happy, or at least the one on this show.
Yeah, I'd be psyched about that. And then I got the rival Vikings for my pick. You see a lot of secondary for them, and I get that they lost Cam Bynum, so you got like Starks as a potential pick here, but I just don't know. I don't know about safety. I'm in worry obviously as well, but safety it's deep in this class. Like you can get Makuba later. There's other safeties that are good as well, and safety is just not a position that goes in the first round all that often. So I'm thinking more corner, perhaps. I might go with a bit of a out of the blue pick here. Not completely out of the blue, but compared to the rest of what we've mocked, I think it is. I might go with Siobhan Ravel Jr.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that makes sense for Brian Flores' scheme. He can kind of play on a rail in that quarters scheme. We've seen him try to make some big plays in zone coverage where he kind of gets either out of position or he's baiting quarterbacks, but either way, he's got production on the ball in that kind of zone way. Mm-hmm. He can press you at the line of scrimmage and reroute you really good, which I know Brian Flores values. He's super physical, great tackler, great blitzer. Yes. Just kind of feels like a Viking and someone that Flores would really want. Now I think they'll trade back. Maybe I'll since I control the Saints and the Vikings, maybe I could engineer a trade up for Milrow and then they can trade back and get Ravel. We talked about that, how likely it is that they trade back because they have just no picks.
That is true. I will say Ravel is not one of my favorite DBs on the board, but I do think Flores would be like the optimal defense for him to land in because Flores is great at maximizing a player's strength. But again, I cannot stand watching his backpedal. He's just he's standing straight up, man. Like I can't do it. So he's someone that I'm really not a big fan of, but I think if he were going to succeed, because like you said, he's a great tackler, a great blitzing piece, would be great in run support. And he does make plays on the ball. Like I think he would flourish in that Flores defense more so than he would in other defenses.
Yeah, it just feels like he might have more of a ceiling than Starks even with how tall he is and how athletic he is and the type of press that he has and the tackling. Like I think he might be a bigger swing than Starks, but at the corner position, which I think they need more, honestly.
I agree.
I'm going with him. I'm going with him over Starks, but maybe I'm sabotaging them on purpose. Putting ideas in their head.
Ideas in their
Not really, I think those
Brian
are two
Flores is actually listening to this episode and he's like, you know what, man, you're right.
and he's taking notes.
He's taking notes.
That leaves me with the Texans here. Mm-hmm. I'll say this. I think the Texans are a team that's both likely to trade down because they love to do it, if they can. And they're a team, I was reading up on their GM who says we never draft for need. So they're a team that's maybe liable to be like annoying sitting here with like, there's a tackle that makes sense on the board and a wide receiver who makes sense on the board. And like, those are their needs, but maybe they're higher on like somebody else and they do something wild or maybe they go Walter Nolan, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be the one to pick that though. I do kind of think that they would, you can say that and then maybe still be like, yeah, but the guy that we need is there. And I think tackle would just, it's got such a chance to just sink their season again. And I think Connerly is someone who is worth the selection here, has good movement skills. Maybe needs to be a little bit more refined, maybe needs to continue to add strength. But I think has the ability to be a seriously good starting tackle. So I'm going to have them go with that. But there's a lot of things that they could do. I kind of think they're a wild card.
Yeah, we're getting into kind of wild card draft territory. Where is Josh Conner? There he is. We are getting into kind of wild card draft territory. You're taking Connerly there for the Texans. I'm up next with the Rams. And I kind of feel the same way where it's like, I want to go corner, but I've seen like every position under the sun mocked to them because it's like, I've seen a quarterback mocked for the sake of like, oh, you got to get a guy behind Stafford to like let him develop in the McVay system. And I agree that like that could be beneficial. I've seen tight end mocked here as well, but with the top two guys off the board, I don't think they would go Harold Fannin, even though he might be the GOAT. Some are saying, some on this show are saying. So I do think corner probably makes the most sense as far as need at this point. And the next best guy on my board would be Trey Amos. I don't know if necessarily if they would go in that direction, but I think that might be what I do here. So.
Yeah, corner is super likely for them. And Amos, I think, is a good zone player and man player, and he's long. And yeah, I have no problem with that.
You're on the Ravens.
I am on the Ravens. I'm going to go with Mike Green here and stop the slide a little bit. It wouldn't surprise me.
This is exactly what's going to happen too. Like this pick is chalk. Mike Green is going to fall to 27 and he's going to be a Raven. And then he's going to have 15 sacks as a rookie. Like I promise.
They just need that kind of juice off the edge. Owe has never developed. He had 0 sacks his senior year at college and got drafted in the first round. Odafe Owe, which was crazy. And he's had a good career since then. Like, I don't think that was a horrible pick, but he just has not developed into the pass rusher that they need. And neither has, who's the Michigan guy that they drafted, whose name also starts with an O, Ajabo. He's kind of similar.
He loved Ajabo too.
Yeah. He's kind of similar, but again, hasn't quite worked out. Mike Green, it wouldn't surprise me if some GMs say he's just as good as Abdul Carter off the edge as like a pure pass rusher. Like the first step, the bend, the geometry that he rushes with when he fakes inside and goes out, or he sets guys up to the outside and goes in. He was this NCAA sack leader last year. So he probably is the most serious guy that they've tried to throw at that position. Of anyone that they've tried. So even though he's got the character concerns, I think they've caused him to slide far enough. Lord knows NFL teams don't really care what you do, as long as you're productive, and he is productive. So I still think there's a very good chance that Mike Green goes in the first round. And yeah, I think the Ravens would be the ideal scheme fit for him, and he might be exactly what they need to finally get over the top in the playoffs with a little bit more juice getting after the quarterback.
Yeah, dude, this is happening. It's a lock. It's guaranteed. This break.
Lock it in.
Yeah, don't even. They're like, I don't even need to hear the draft. Like Thursday's gonna come, and I just know it's gonna be Mike Green at 27. So I'm gonna just process that now. But
Me, Lions 28.
You, Lions 28.
Shamar Stewart.
Yeah.
I think they're going to go edge here if they see a slide like this. Stewart's obviously a little bit of a project. We've talked about him a lot and how his first step might not be where you want it to be. And sometimes like he needs to combine things rather than maybe just make one move. But he has some serious pass rushing talent, I think, even if the production wasn't there. And here at 28, I think it's pretty decent value. They still have not brought back Zadarius Smith, so that other side could be weak, and you don't know how long it's going to take Hutchinson to be back, and then when he's back, when he's going to be in form. I don't know if there's anybody who I'm like trusting to come in and be productive from day one at 28 at edge, right? But Stewart, I think, has the tools and can hold up as just a run defender, which I think would mean a lot to them as well. So he's a good value pick here.
Yes. Yeah, Shamar Stewart. The Lions, I do not hate that at all.
He's a glass eater. He's a glass. Campbell would like him. He'll see that edge set on Membao at the end of the Mizzou game where he like throws him backwards and gets the tackle, and he'll be like, all right, first overall grade. If he fell to them, he'd be like, how did we get the best player in the whole draft? At this point, I think he's just that kind of player. The way he locks out, even when the run's away from him, which it often is because they don't want to run his direction. Like even when the run is away from him, just the way he's dominating these college guys in the run game is just pure Dan Campbell. I feel like just pure he's jolting guys and giving the offensive players CTE. Like that's what he wants. So yeah, I think they'd run that card up. They might trade up if he starts to fall a little bit, because that's the last piece of the puzzle really that they need too, is another edge opposite Hutchinson.
Oh yeah, and this is what's gonna happen. The Lions are gonna trade up to 26. And I'm like, yes, they're gonna take Mike Green, not the Ravens, and then they're gonna take Shamar Stewart, and then the Ravens are still gonna get Mike Green, and yeah, no, this is gonna happen, dude. It's so clear as day.
I thought the Lions might like Thomas, the corner from FSU, but after and he does fit kind of their man philosophy, but he doesn't tackle good enough. They'd like Stewart more. They'd be like, that's not a kneecap eater right there. We need Stewart.
That puts me on the clock with Washington, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I could go edge here. I could take James Pierce Jr. But I feel like safety makes a lot of sense right now. There's a big slide on Malachi Starks, who has been the consensus safety one in this class. And even though he wouldn't be my pick here, I think Starks, if he is here at 29, I think the Commanders would take him. Because I think their starting safety right now is Will Harris.
Harris isn't the worst guy to go in with, I think. He kind of impressed me in his limited time in New Orleans, but Starks is not a crazy first round pick for them whatsoever.
No, I look at their defensive line and I'm like, they could definitely take any of the top, Walter Nolan's still here. I think they could very easily take him. I think they could go Pierce Jr. Any of those three, I think could be at this slot. Starks just feels like vibe check. That might be what they go with.
Can I throw in another name? I like the Starks.
Yeah.
I think this is a good Henderson spot.
In previous mocks, I have gone running back here, but I don't know if they actually will do that,
I just feel like Daniels supercharges everything so much that it's kind of a.
I love
when they took when you put Henry with Lamar or Saquon with Hurts, it just becomes totally unstoppable with the option. Like if there's a running back they really like and they combine him with Daniels, and Henderson can block obviously and receive a little bit too. He's plus 120 odds to go in the first round. I think it would have to be the Bears, I guess, because of Bieniemy and the connection there, or the 49. Now I'm doing it, Blaiden.
I know.
Or the Commanders.
The 49ers just feel like the football team to say when you can't think of a team's name. But no, I completely agree with you. If they took Henderson, I've mocked Henderson here a couple of times, specifically because that's the missing piece to their offense, kind of in the same way as taking Hampton for the Broncos. It's just, I look at the worst part of the Commanders' offense. There were stretches, especially in the back half of the year, where, Daniels is playing superhuman football out there because he has to. And bringing in someone to where, obviously he did a great job and you don't want to, not give him the flowers or the credit that he deserves there. But if you can at least give him something to, take the pressure off so that he doesn't have to go out there and play unreal football to even stay in contention with the Eagles in that playoff game, I think that would be an awesome pick. I just don't know if that's what they will do. So I don't know. They're kind of there's a few things they could do, but I feel like Starks is kind of if he slides this far, that might be what they do.
How much did they pay Will Harris? 2 years, $8 million. Yeah, that doesn't have to be.
I don't know. It's he's fine, but the defensive line is not good. I'm gonna stick with Starks. That's the pick I came in with. That's the pick I'm gonna stick with. But they could do a number. They could do a number of things here.
Yeah,
Buffalo.
I don't rate it.
Buffalo. Let's see. I think I'm going to go with Golden here. It's a bit of a luxury pick, but he's fallen so crazy far that I think I'm going to go with him. Where does he fit in? They signed Palmer this offseason, who's a good fit as kind of the deep threat there. They paid him somewhat serious money. So they don't have to go with wide receiver in the first round at all. But man, Golden, he's Steve Smith's wide receiver one. I think it's not unthinkable that other teams
Steve Smith
have
get rate on wide receiver.
Yeah, we like him as a wide receiver evaluator, and I know like a lot of people
He
have
was
him on
high
the
on
same
like
team.
Mingo. I think he's mostly good, yeah, but there's been Panthers
Fair
has been on his ass this
Fair enough.
offseason on Twitter. But I don't disagree.
Yeah, but I guess I shouldn't use him as the end all be all. But Golden is a highly regarded player in this class, and he doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. I mean, he can take the top off with his speed. We can argue if it's really 4.2 speed. I don't think it is, but it's pretty fast. Like, he gets open on big posts. He gets open against press on goes. So it's fast enough as far as I'm concerned. He tracks the ball really well. He plays bigger than his size with his catch radius. He's not crazy after the catch. He's not Jamar Chase or anything, but he can maneuver a little bit and juke out the safety. And yeah, there's just really not a lot to dislike about his game. And so I think if you're the Bills and you're sitting here, and they've done a lot this offseason, they've added Joey Bosa. They've restructured a lot of their contracts. They added Larry Ogunjobi. They added Michael Hoyt. So maybe you're thinking that's enough of a pass rush boost that we don't need to go with that in the first round. They just signed Tre'Davious White. That's not really the biggest addition, I guess. I could definitely see corner as well. But there's just no corner as good as Matthew Golden right here. And yeah, you can bank on Palmer. You can bank on Keon Coleman if you want. But I think I'd like a little bit more, at least depth there. And maybe he's better than both of those guys. It's not hard to imagine.
For sure. Yeah. That leaves me with the Chiefs at 31 for my final pick. I'm going straight BPA here. I think Walter Nolan's fallen too far for somebody not to snap him up. Chiefs absolutely have room for him, I think, next to Chris Jones. And he's somebody who, could change the defense if he hits what, he could be in terms of just his overall talent. But it's also easy to get out there when you have Chris Jones and when he's already such a strong run defender, right? So I think this situation bodes well for somebody with a lot of talent, and he's easy to work in. There's a lot of different things that the Chiefs could do, like offensive line's a popular pick here, and rightfully so, but the way this board has fallen, I'm going to trust that they can play what is happening in front of them rather than just be like, well, we've got to do what we've got to do. So I'm going Nolan.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. That puts me with the Eagles, and I've seen kind of a split between what reports are saying, what fans are saying, or at least what fans say they want.
Eagles fans think they're getting every single player in this draft. Every breakdown I've posted.
That's because they've got the greatest GM of all time.
They usually do. So
Yeah, it's very fair. And then there's a player that I really think would be an awesome fit for them, but I don't know if they would take it. So what I see mostly is edge. I haven't seen James Pierce mocked here a ton, usually because he's mocked earlier. But I could see him going here, especially with all the other top edges gone. I've seen Nolan mocked here, but Matt just took him. I see a lot of fans wanting Malachi Starks or Nick Emenwari at this spot. But I would also really entertain the possibility of going with another linebacker. I know they have a pretty solid, slew of linebackers, but they just won the Super Bowl. They're good pretty much everywhere. So I wouldn't be opposed to going Demetrius Knight here as well, or Schlesinger. Schlesinger's better, I think, a really good cover guy, but I would probably take Knight here. So that's kind of where my head's at as what could happen. I'm going to probably just go with Pierce just because that's what the reports are kind of leaning towards.
I picked Knight in the first round earlier after really sitting down and watching him and having everything fold out this way. I'd be pretty shocked if he went first round. He's
I
a
don't
good player,
think.
but
Yeah, I think he's a really good player. I don't think the Eagles
with his
would
age.
pull. I don't think the Eagles would pull on him this early. And I think Pierce is probably the more likely option. Even though I think Emanwari could go here, I don't think that would be a crazy thing. But I don't see him as like the Eagles are kind of similar to the Ravens in the sense that they're more likely to take like a highly touted player that's falling than someone who's kind of like try and be like, oh, overthink, oh, this guy's going to be really good. Even though a lot of people like Emanwari, there isn't a ton of first round hype around him at this point, I feel like.
I'll trade you the Saints pick for this pick.
You'll trade me the Saints pick?
I wouldn't.
Milrow.
You want Milrow here, Theo?
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you willing to give me for it? What are you willing to give me for it?
Let's see. They've got the
So they're sitting at pick 40 would be their next pick. So obviously I want that.
And you want and I'm trying to get to 32. How about a third round pick
this year or next year?
This year.
So what? 40 and 71 for 32?
Sure.
Matt, do you think that's good value?
I think the Saints would probably be better off just not trying to address quarterback this offseason rather than do that. But crazier things have happened. I mean, they traded up like 2 firsts for Marcus Davenport, and they didn't move that far. So I remember.
That is true. All right, sure.
I don't think it's crazy.
Sure.
There we go.
It's certainly not. Yeah.
You heard him. The deal is done. The Saints have the 32nd pick, and they're taking Jalen Milrow.
Okay.
And he came to Green Bay for a reason, and Kellen Moore is going to just install the Eagles' offense with Rashid as Devontae Smith and Olave as AJ Brown.
So now the Eagles will probably get Emanwari at 40, which would be pretty good value at that spot. Or Emanwari goes before then and they get Talik Williams. Or they get Pierce there. Or they get Talik Williams and he'll be the best run defender in the league in no time.
A lot of stuff they could do.
So that'll be the full mock draft if it'll load. There we go. Last time I did a mock draft, I did 2 rounds and it didn't load after. And I was very upset.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
You know, I really appreciate you saying that. So the final mock draft tally. I hate this. This is my least favorite part of the episode.
You don't have to reread the whole thing. No one. You don't have to do it.
I don't.
Check out the Stay Hot Twitter, and you'll see the whole thing.
Boom! Oh, and we probably and
all right, yeah. Then I won't relay the whole thing. I'll just send it.
There's no reason to put yourself in such peril. Me and Theo, we don't want you to do that to yourself.
You know, and I really appreciate you guys for saying that. It means a lot.
If you're wondering what the full draft order is, check our Twitter, and it'll be on there.
All you need to know is that it started and ended with a quarterback. Bang. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Stay Hot. The draft is right around the corner. We will be doing something for the draft, whether it be a live stream or a recap episode immediately after. We will do something. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And until next time, as always, we will catch you on the flippity flop.